Welcome to Mythic Muscle, the podcast where we delve into the fascinating worlds of fitness and folklore. I'm your host, Benjamin Cloud, and in each episode, we'll explore the myths, legends, and stories from cultures around the world and see how they intersect with the world of fitness. What I aim to do is provide a captivating, dramatic retelling and set you on your way to a healthier version of yourself. As a powerlifter and a bodybuilder with a deep interest in mythology and folklore, I've always been intrigued by the ways that ancient cultures viewed strength, power, and the human body. In each episode, I'll take you on a journey through a different mythological tale or figure, exploring its literary nature and its relevance to modern fitness culture. And to really bring the story to life, I'll also present a specialized workout program that's inspired by the mythological themes we discuss. So whether you're a fitness enthusiast looking for some new workout ideas, a mythology buff curious about the deeper meanings behind these tales, or just someone who loves a good story, this podcast is for you. Join me on this journey of discovery, and let's explore the intersection of fitness and folklore together. Sekhmet, mistress of dread, the one before whom evil trembles, Ra's divine retribution. Sekhmet the Bloodthirsty has earned her many names through great conquest and even greater bloodshed, all in the name of Ra, the first pharaoh and god of the sun. Though calling Sekhmet a servant of Ra would be partially correct. The lion-headed destroyer god was born of Ra's wrath, for the people of Egypt were disobedient and disrespected Ma'at, the goddess of truth and justice. They shed the principles set by Ma'at and stooped low, engaging in acts of debauchery, committing heresy to Ra and Ma'at, plotting their own ascension through the overthrowing of the sun god. Ra would not have this, and their continued behaviors forced his hand. It is said, under a noonday sun reflecting off blood-red sands the color of Ra's anger, that he plucked his own eye from its socket and lifted it into the sky. From the sun's rays, his vengeful deliverance was at hand. Stood before him power, pride, and muscle in abundance was Sekhmet. Her head was that of a regal lion's maw and mane, with eyes that could drive great warriors to their knees in obeisance. Her body was that of a woman's, but lean, athletic, and robust. Sekhmet's great strength was depicted through her wide shoulders and corded arms, but the other aspect of Sekhmet was depicted through her svelte hips and ample breast. It is most assuredly true that Sekhmet was an instrument of fury for Ra, but as a war is a plague on humanity, there must be a cure. Ra had intended for Sekhmet to be both. She was all things violence, but the Egyptians worshipped her for her ability to cure any ailment. Physicians and healers, warriors and athletes revered her and offered her sacrifices. They held great festivals where they drank pomegranate-stained beer in her honor. They played her music and whispered their prayers into mummified cat ears, which they believed brought said prayers directly to Sekhmet. Sorry, kitty. These festivals were born of Sekhmet's intense and immediate efficacy. As soon as her feet touched Ra's gilded temple step, she set off to slaughter his enemies with great ferocity. She would breathe fire as hot as the desert sirocco's, send upon humanity's conspirators locusts and aphids, and when things got physical, she would rip, bite, claw, slash, and send volleys of golden arrows upon her enemies. Sekhmet moved as a whirlwind, with speed, grace, and savagery in equal parts. The humans seeking to rid Ra of his status were swiftly dealt with, but Sekhmet's unquenchable thirst for battle could not be slaked. The lion goddess would continue her onslaught, entering neighboring countries to seek out any who would oppose Ra's rule, and Ra swiftly realized she was far too effective a salve. Ra would trick Sekhmet, ordering the production of a massive amount of beer stained with human blood. To calm her rage, Ra thought he would intoxicate her. The blood would satiate her need, and perhaps he could save all of humanity from his creation. It proved effective, and when she returned to Ra, wildly intoxicated beyond all measure, she was covered in blood, so stained as the beer, and all those who looked upon her would, from there forward, refer to her as the Red Lady. Whenever a less delicate touch was necessary, Ra would call upon Sekhmet. She would do his bidding, and then eventually she would return soaked in blood and beer. In some instances, Ra would find the need to send the god of wisdom and logic, Thoth, to reason with her. Sometimes this was effective. Other times, they just pumped her full of bloody beer, and that seemed to work just fine too. And when Sekhmet was not intoxicated and not in a state of blood-crazed fury, she was a prodigious healer. Those who offered sacrifices of beer and burned incense for her would receive her blessing. Humanity had learned its lesson, and Sekhmet would be allowed the luxury of employing her prowess as a healer. But none would forget Sekhmet's brutality and aggression, and in equal aspect they would call upon her grace and medicinal aid. The people of Egypt would continue to hold ceremony, and thus the festivals I spoke of before were born. Instead of mixing the beer with pigment or blood, it turns out pomegranate gives a lovely color and doesn't impact the flavor too harshly. Though as much as I love a good beer, I think I'd skip the slightly pomegranate-y brew. Sekhmet's myth is quite short, but her legacy is impossibly long. Multiple pharaohs, including the likes of Ramses II and Amenhotep III, built hundreds of statues in her likeness. Ramses wore a symbol of Sekhmet into battle, for good fortune and to embody her destructive nature. At Karnak Temple in Egypt, there's a frieze depicting Sekhmet riding Ramses' horse into battle. Egyptian warriors would carry banners stained red with golden images of Sekhmet flitting in the hot desert wind and glinting under the noon sun. Much of ancient Egypt's physicians would accredit Sekhmet for teaching them the ways of medicine, or blessing their instruments to strike true at the heart of their patient's disease. And these are only a few examples of Sekhmet's well-earned reverence. There are plenty more out there. The history is quite intriguing. But for now, we should get into the fitness while she's still too drunk to come after us. When looking at Sekhmet's story, there really isn't that much to bring to the fore fitness-wise. But the few things we do have can educate a pretty solid workout. I'm gonna present an intense, brutal leg day paired with just a little bit of cardio. Here's the method to my madness. Sekhmet is obviously known for her brutality, but she's also revered by physicians. Leg days are known for their brutality, and cardio is known to be, ding ding ding, revered by physicians. Egypt's athletes engaged in really similar style to ancient Olympians. They wrestled, sprinted, ran marathon-style races, battled in tug-of-war, and rode boats down the Nile, which I totally thought was sacred and not something you were supposed to do, but I'll have to look more into that and get back to, I guess. We're going to take a little bit from Egyptian training methodology too, which describes fitness as more of a sport than anything else. So here's exercise number 1 of our lioness workout. Hack squats, or alternatively dumbbell front squats, 4 sets, aim for at least 8 reps, RPE 9. Hack squats are crazy. Traditional hack squats are crazier. Do these on a machine and don't do them the way that George Hackenschmidt, the guy who popularized them in the West, suggests to do them. If you don't know that method, that's for the best, stick to the machine. These light up the entirety of the leg, are quad dominant, and because they're a machine exercise, stability isn't often a limiting factor, meaning we can get super close to failure here at a low risk for injury. What's also awesome about hack squats is that if you've got injuries or poor mobility, you can perform them in a variety of ways that still hammers your legs. Now, the most effective way to do these, at least for hypertrophy's sake, is to lower the load all the way down, force your knees forward, and rise to the balls of your feet at the bottom, pushing the knees out as far as they can possibly go. Tom Platz, the Quadfather, is famous for doing them this way, and if a guy with the nickname Quadfather is suggesting something for a quad exercise, I probably should too. But just because it worked for him, and this goes for all famous lifters in general, looking at you, Lu Xiaojun, it doesn't mean it's totally applicable for you. If you don't have mobility as insane as Tom Platz, then just simply don't. The idea is to grow the quads, not ruin them. Go as deep as you can without pain or a subjective high risk of injury, and then explode back up as athletically and powerful as you can. Slow eccentric stretch, explosive concentric lift. If you're doing the alternative exercise because you don't have access to a hack squat, I'm with you. My gym doesn't have a hack squat machine either, and I really miss my old college gym's machines a lot. For the dumbbell front squat, you'll most likely run into the question of, where the hell do I put these things? The answer is, whatever is most comfortable to you. Some people like to rest the dumbbell on their shoulders, that's fine, and probably the best way to do it. Some people like to supinate their palms and rotate them inwards. You can do this, but now we're targeting the biceps for some reason via a static hold. If you prefer this way, just make sure it's not interfering with your bicep training. Lastly, I've seen the dumbbell front squat performed with the dumbbells statically above the head. Shoulders locked in place, mimicking sort of the top portion of an overhead press. Don't do this. It's stupid, but it's not only stupid, it's also dumb. Vitriol aside, Think about what this hand position is adding to the exercise versus what it's taking away. As a note, with any exercise you do in the gym that you're modifying from the base movement, ask yourself that same question. So you're adding huge amounts of instability, which will fire the stabilizing muscles in your upper back in forms like crazy, but why split your neuromuscular focus between your upper back and your legs if you're doing a movement that's supposed to target the legs? It also engages your core more, I hear you say, to which I will retort, see above. We're doing this exercise to train the legs, not the core. Core is going to be involved anyway, it's a side effect, not a solution. All in all, just like the hack squat, be careful, form is key, technique is everything. Knees over toes, never inward. Exercise number 2, leg press, or alternatively box jumps, 3 sets, RPE 7, aim for 12 to 20 reps here. Leg press is actually my go-to leg exercise. I've got advanced crepitus in both knees and rods in my ankles. Back squatting is pretty much out of the picture for me. The leg press and the hack squat are basically dichotomous exercises. If you rotate either exercise 180 degrees, they look a lot like each other. Instead of moving your torso like in the hack squat, you move your legs only. Leg press also allows for an extremely deep stretch. If you watched Mythic Muscle episode 1, you know exactly what I'm going to say next. The deep stretch position is the most hypertrophy-inducing part of the lift, so huge checkmark there. It's inherently stable once again, checkmark part 2. There are a billion variations of it, and you can manage the depth and load in direct correlation with your own mobility or previous injuries. Checkmark part 3. I'd recommend for this, keep your feet slightly outside of your natural hip line, maybe a half a foot's length outward, and press as deeply as you can without pain or injury. Then explode back up. Slow on the way down, press with everything you've got on the way up. As for the box jumps, these guys are surprisingly effective at mimicking both the earlier hack squat and the leg press. I actually had difficulty choosing which to sub this for, but I flipped a coin and put them here. Not everything is overly exact and scientific here on Mythic Muscle. Box jumps are a great way to build explosive power, and they're an even greater introduction to the world of plyometrics, a modality that I've probably been sleeping on for way too long. They're hard. They target the quads and hamstrings in pretty much equal affairs. They're a little rougher on the joints, but they do test an aspect of fitness that leg press won't, and that's your coordination. Jumping is surprisingly more complicated than just lifting your body off of the ground really fast. It gets more complicated when you have to target a specific height to land on. For people focused primarily on general athleticism, I'd say these are way more important to you than the leg press. These are also super cardiovascularly demanding, so while not as stimulating in the realm of hypertrophy, though still rather effective all things given, box jumps are most assuredly a powerful tool in any fitness enthusiast's arsenal. I'm not the most qualified in teaching someone how to jump properly, so I really won't attempt to give you any form advice other than go low, swing with your hands, and jump hard. That's all I got there. Exercise number 3. Battle ropes or burpees. 5 minutes, 1 set. To embody Sekhmet's love for war, I'm going to have you go to war with your body. Battle ropes are great for cardiovascular health, they're fun as hell, and who doesn't love slamming stuff into the ground repeatedly? I know I do. The movement targets the whole body, which isn't terribly great for hypertrophy, but definitely great for general fitness, and there's an aspect of personal tenacity that's pretty prevalent here. See, battle ropes are as difficult as you make them. That's just not grammatically correct, but this is the meathead portion of the show, so cut me some slack. Either way, you have to make the conscious decision to keep them difficult. You can slow down or speed up, make it more intense or less intense, and they'll give you exactly back what you put in. Their efficacy is predicated upon your own intensity. Hey, that was a part 1 of the show line. Burpees are much of the same, except you're slamming, deliberately dropping your body to the ground, doing a push-up, and jumping back up. These are probably slightly better for hypertrophy, though not a ton. Definitely fitting in better with that cardio/fitness agenda. 5 minutes of burpees is a lot, and by the end of it, you'll be begging to get into the next exercise, or you'd want to go home and cry. Exercise number 3. Leg extensions superset with leg curls. Alternatives, heel elevated ATG body squat superset with Nordic hamstring curls. Sets and RPE varied. For the first pairing, the leg extension and the leg curl, I'd recommend doing RPE 8 on both and doing no less than 12 reps, 3 sets in total. For the heel elevated ATG bodyweight squats and Nordics, I'd recommend going 20 squats and then Nordics till failure. I suspect if you haven't done a lot of these, that's going to be relatively fast. 3 sets in total. Let's talk leg extensions and leg curls. This is where the editor smash cuts to Tom Platz on the leg extension screaming "kill me" over and over and over while performing reps. Leg extensions are the single best exercise for isolating the quads, and if you go even deeper than that, they're the single best exercise for isolating specific muscles in the quads. With the slightest variation in feet positioning, you can target the 4 different muscles directly. Try to set the machine up so that your feet point directly downward and are beneath the seat, slightly behind your glutes. Then explode with everything you have to the top position. The cue I like to use here is try to get your toes all the way to your eye line. You will suffer. It will burn. That constitutes growth, and growth is good. Immediately following that, I'd recommend you stand up. If you went hard enough, you'll need to. If you know, you know. Shake your legs out for a few seconds, swap the machine position to the leg curl setting, and go to town. Slow and deliberate hamstring curl, and resist the weight pulling you out of the seat. This is one of my favorite supersets because it's super easy to set up, it's a quick change, and it's monstrously effective. Your legs will be jelly at this point. This is a positive. For the alternate, assuming you don't have access to a leg curl/leg extension machine, focus everything you've got on the muscle contraction. Listen, neither of the alternative exercises are going to be as muscularly stimulating as the previous two, but they will allow you to get a seriously killer mind-muscle connection. They're a lot better on the joints. Both are also really great for rehabilitative work or mobility work as well. So, starting with the heel-elevated ATG bodyweight squats. For those who don't know, ATG is ass to grass. It's called this because you put your ass to the grass. Jokes aside, ATG is really popular among weightlifters, as a lot of their movements require a hugely deep stretch in the bottom portion. This is typically referred to as the pocket. The pocket is really great for mobility and hypertrophy, but the minute you add weight, it becomes A, difficult to bail out of, and B, highly injurious. I personally believe we should still train in these deep positions so as to not acquire injuries of instability later on in life, but if your goal is purely strength or hypertrophy, stick to back squatting at just below parallel. I'd recommend both a slow eccentric and slow concentric. For the time and attention bros out there, I bet you feel super vindicated right now. Focus on muscular contraction as you move through each portion of the movement, from the top position in that arc down to the bottom position and then rising back to the top. If you struggle with acquiring a good mind-muscle connection with your quads, slow it down and really feel these. The weight is minimal and nothing is stopping you from really just slogging through the movement in an attempt to feel it as hard as you can. The more you increase the angle of elevation, the more you're mimicking a hack squat and the more you're triggering an increase in mobility, but be warned, too much too quickly won't feel like anything in the moment, but catches up really fast. I speak from experience here. Onto the Nordics. Nordics are a super weird exercise. There's like a cult following of the damn things, but after having done them for a mesocycle, I can see why. First, these really require a form explanation. There's a billion ways to set these up, so I'm going to give you the basic principles. You start by kneeling on the floor, bend your knees, and slowly lower yourself to the ground, typically catching yourself at the end in a push-up position. Something should be locking your feet in place, be that a person, a machine, a barbell, you name it. But this exercise isolates the hamstrings almost entirely. Nordics force stimulation via slow, nearly isometric tension. This exercise is all eccentric, which is quite rare in the world of fitness. The slower you resist your body pulling you to the ground, the more you're getting out of the exercise. Much like the battle ropes, you get out what you put in. The knees over toes guy has a lot of information about Nordics and reverse Nordics, so I can highly recommend that channel for guidance. Either way, these are killer on the hamstrings, and can help to bulletproof your tendons. There aren't any great ways to progressively overload this exercise in my opinion, but experiment with timing your eccentrics. Once you start to feel like you can move through the exercise slower, do so, and time it. Try to get a higher time each training session that you employ these. Lastly, here's a finisher. This leg day puts you through hell, much like Sekhmet sending countless warriors to Anubis. With that in mind, let's really push the envelope. Sekhmet's myth paints her as an unyielding force just endlessly trampling through countless warriors across many countries. In order to keep up with her rapid pace, you'd have to be sprinting with all of your might. So that's exactly what you're going to do. I do not recommend a treadmill here. I have a story about a woman in a Planet Fitness. If you ask it, I'll tell it. It's ugly. Your goal is to try and keep up with Sekhmet. You're going to sprint all out for as long as you possibly can after this intensely brutal leg session. Likely, you won't be moving very quickly at all, or you might not even be able to sprint, but this will really squeeze out the remaining glycogen in your legs and destroy the rest of those maybe untapped muscle fibers. There's only 3 situations I'd really recommend actually doing this finisher though. 1, you completed the workout but feel like you didn't give it everything you had and want to make amends by really going for it and expending all that you have left in the tank. 2, you've got a few days of rest planned afterward. To that same note, you won't be training legs or using them heavily for a day or so. And 3, you're some David Goggins-esque animal worried about who's going to carry the boats and the logs and you just want to burn the midnight oil as hard as you possibly can. Cheers to you, and please seek help. This leg day has been ridiculously intense. If you make your way through it, congratulations, you're a beast. It's not entirely tailored for beginners, but to that same extent, anything can be for beginners as long as you take it easy, execute movements with proper form, and push yourself to just before your limit. Leave the limit breaking to the intermediates, they need it. With that, I have been your host, Benjamin Cloud. This has been the Mythic Muscle podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time. Take care, folks. Special shoutouts to this month's patrons: Alexis Cloud, Jeff Fentress, Rex Domingo, Kevin Jong, Colton Cassidy, and Michael Farrell. Even more special shoutout to Zach Savage for producing the music for Mythic Muscle. He did a phenomenal job, and I'm immensely grateful for his work. Please consider supporting me on Patreon. For only $3 a month, you get Discord access, and you buy me a protein bar. $5 a month gets you Discord access with special colors and emotes, blooper reels, a shout out from me, and transcripts of each episode. $10 a month gets you all of that noise, a vote in our monthly poll, a personalized 10-second clip of whatever you want me to say, and every dollar spent at that tier goes right back into the podcast so that I might bring you a better listening experience. Follow my socials. You can find me on pretty much every platform by searching for Mythic Muscle Podcast and looking for the helmet crossed with the barbell and the microphone. If you made it this far, you're my favorite type of human, and I hope you have a wonderful day, a fantastic lift, or if it's a rest day, you get some quality relaxation time. Thank you.